The company is Holland America Cruise Line. We were on a cruise, the Alaskan cruise. Unfortunately, we contracted COVID while we were on the cruise and spent 4 days in isolation, followed by 6 days isolation in a hotel in Vancouver. Problem was that the company hasn't paid any form of compensation or allowances, food allowances that they agreed to pay while we were in isolation. We put the necessary paperwork, claims in, and haven't had any response for at least 8 weeks now. We're still waiting. So Holland America, please get in touch and let us know what's happening. My name's Keith Naylor. I'm sort of calling on behalf of my wife, who we were both booked on a cruise, an Alaskan cruise with Holland America, and the cruise was for a 7-day cruise from the 17th to the 24th of September. Unfortunately, we contracted COVID-19 on the 2nd day of the cruise. So we did the honest thing, as we saw at the time. We contacted the medical team on board the ship. They then confirmed our own diagnosis, and from that point on, our holiday basically ended with 10 days of quarantine, which, you know, it happens. We accepted that. I mean, it was meant to be the sort of crowning glory of our holiday in Canada, but of course it came to an abrupt end, which was fine. We accepted it and couldn't do anything about it. So we spent the next 4 days. No, yes, that's right. 4 days in confinement on board the ship. And when the cruise eventually came to an end, when we were back in Vancouver, we were escorted to our isolation hotel, and we had to spend another 6 days of solitary confinement, if you like, until, you know, we did the 10 days compulsory isolation before we could just return home, basically. So we got through all of that. We were told various information by the company Holland America about, you know, what we had to do to to continue with this isolation. That we couldn't leave the room or the hotel under any circumstances. They gave us information about, you know, how we could get meals, that we were allowed, we were given an allowance of $100 per day per person, which we didn't need to have any receipts for. That would just be paid at the end of the isolation period, which is, you know, fair enough. We were happy with that. So we got through the 6 days isolation in the hotel. We had to contact our travel company to arrange alternate flights home after the 6 days, because obviously we missed our return flights. And then we got back. The allowance that was meant to be paid wasn't. We were told we'd have to fill in an out-of-pocket expenses form and then submit it to the company. And it was best to leave that until we'd contacted our travel insurance company, because we needed to see if we could claim for the expenses for the hotel and flight changes through our insurance. If that wasn't possible, then we could go back to Holland America and put a claim into them for those expenses. So we contacted our insurance company when we got back and put all of that into sort of motion in terms of claiming for our expenses. And at the same time, we sent off the claim to Holland America for the meal allowance, which was the $100 per day, which we hadn't been paid. So the way things stand at the moment, we managed to claim back all our expenses from our travel insurance company, but we haven't had anything from Holland America since returning from our trip. So we're still waiting. And basically, the problems we've had have just been contacting the company. The customer services, or as they call it, guest relations department, just seems woefully inadequate for a company of the size of Holland America. Well, in my view, anyway, they don't respond to emails. They say that it may take 6 to 10 weeks just to reply to an email. It's been 8 weeks since we sent off our claim for expenses. We did get an acknowledgement when we did send the necessary forms through, but again they said it can take between 6 and 10 weeks for some sort of response. So we haven't heard anything. I did try and contact their guest relations by telephone, and there's just no one answers the phone. I've had a situation where I was put on hold for 2 hours, and I just gave up after 2 hours. It's just impossible to get through. We did manage to get through once about a month ago, and I think we were just very lucky. It took 45 minutes for them to answer the phone, and I had a lengthy conversation with the guy in guest relations there, explained our situation, and just in talking to him, he did let slip that he was the only person who was answering calls in that department. So he was obviously overstretched. He just he just couldn't cope, basically. And our experience since then is just the same. They just put you on hold, and then you can't get through. So they won't respond to emails, and they won't respond to telephone calls. So what do you do? This is where we are at the moment. Still waiting for some sort of response. I mean, we're not asking for a great deal. They all we're asking for is the allowance that they promised in the first place, which they said we didn't need receipts for, and it would be paid at the end of the isolation period. We haven't received a penny from them. All of our expenses for the hotel, isolation hotel charges, and the flight changes have been paid for by our own insurance, travel insurance. So we're just asking them for the expenses that they promised in the first place. Still waiting. Well, it would be nice for them to communicate with me, just to contact and say, yes, we've received your claim. We can't see a problem with it, and that the payment will be made. At the moment, there's just no sign as to whether they're going to pay it or not. And are we just going to continue to wait and not get any response? If they won't answer the calls or respond to emails, how do we know?